Hi all, welcome back. In this video, I am going to create a to-do application using Angular and PrimeNG components. So this is our to-do application which has a list, add, then update and delete as well. So here is the input box. If I am adding some dummy text and click on this button, it will get added at the end. By clicking the checkbox as completed, it will update this particular record. So even after refresh, it will be the same and you can delete the record, then it will be removed from the list. This is what I am going to do on the coming section. So let's get started. So I already installed an Angular application using the command ng-new. Once this Angular project has been installed, you can run the application using the command ng-serve. You just give ng-serve, then it will already open our application in 4200. You can go to the browser and you can enter 4000 localhost 4200, then it will show an application like this. Then you can go to the src folder app, and in the app.component.html, these are the content which is showing in your browser. So I'm just clearing it and I'm simply giving div hello world. You can see it is reflected. So now Angular application has been, the Angular project is installed. Next step is you have to install PrimeNG and the supported primeicons and the primeflex for the CSS classes. Okay, so go to new terminal and you can give the command npm install PrimeNG primeicons then primeflex. So it's up to you. If you are using different icons or different CSS class, you can install that one. Now I am using all the PrimeNG related stuff. So PrimeNG, primeicons, primeflex. So this will take some time to install. Once that has been installed, you can go and check in the package.json file. These three packages is installed. Okay. So the next thing is, like, in order to use the PrimeNG related stuff, you can go to angular.json file, and in the style section, you have to add the theme, which theme you want, and which PrimeNG, the PrimeNG minified file and the PrimeNG flux CSS needs to be added in the style sections. If you have any confusion, you can go to the PrimeNG website, and in the installation guide, they are mentioning if you are installing the PrimeNG, you can add the CSS like this. And if you want more information about the primeflex installation, you can go and search for primeflex. So primeflex installation is also there. In the setup, they are mentioning primeflex CSS needs to be imported. So those three sections are added in the styles array. Then regarding the primeicons, in order to use the primeicons, go to this style.css file and you have to give @import primeicons CSS, @import primeicon, then primeicon CSS files. Once these things has been done, your PrimeNG setup is complete. Now we can check the PrimeNG is working fine or not. Okay, for that, what I am going to do is I am going to take the PrimeNG component, PrimeNG card component. Okay, so I'm going to take the card component of the PrimeNG. So this is a card component. So first you have to import the card module and go to your application. I'm closing all other files. Going to the application, there will be a single module. So app.module. In your application, you can go to this file and add the card module, and that needs to be added in the imports array. So the card module is imported. Again, in order to use the card, you have to use the p card in the HTML. So you can copy this content from here and go to the HTML file and override this hello world with the p card with the title and some data. So go to the application. So you can see this PrimeNG is not reflected. The card is not looking like this, right? So once you have do any changes in your angular.json file, you have to restart. Okay, so I was running the application. Now you can exit the application and you can run again using the ng-serve command. Okay, now you can see the changes is reflecting now and my card is also available. So the PrimeNG setup is also completed. So our next step is like, we are going to build a to-do application. First there will be a list, then an add, then edit, delete. So first we will concentrate on creating a list. Okay, before creating a list, we can make it as sender aligned. So in order to use it as a sender aligned, there will be some flex classes. So what you can do is, if you want to go for the tutorial of the primeflex, you can go ahead. Now what I am doing, I am going to create a div with these many classes. So there is a flex class, flex column, align item sender, justify, content sender. So once this has been done, and you can give a class of width 60%. So it will take it is like a call MD6. Okay, so call 6, it will take this much part, and we are added flex column, align item sender, and the justify content. So now this looks okay. So I'm changing the header to do. The next thing is, you have to add a table. So go to the PrimeNG and you can search for the table component. So table component, I will import that one in the app.module.ts file, table component. That table module needs to be added in the import section. Then you can see the p table. This code you can copy from here and paste it in the HTML file. So here I am removing this one. Instead of this one, I am giving like this. I'm not adding any table style. So here the products, this products needs to be either come from the API. Now before adding the API related stuff, I will give this products a static value. So go to the app.component.ts file and you can give the products equal to an array of, I am giving ID as 1 and I am giving a task as first to do. Then I am giving a flag called completed as false. So I have these three things. Then come to the HTML part. I only have 3 columns. So the one is for the task, one is for the completed, and one is for the delete icon. So I'm just adding the 3, and one is for the task and another one is for completed, and this one there is no heading. So here instead of the product, I am telling like it is a to do. So this is the variable it is referring. So instead of products, we can change the variable to to-dos, and I am giving the same variable here, and I am telling each to do is a to do. It will take the each object, and the first column will be to do dot task. The second will be to do dot, it should be a checkbox, but I will change it later. So to do dot completed. Then there should be a delete icon. So in order to use a delete icon, you have to use a button component. So before moving to the button component, we have to make sure the table is working fine or not. So let's go to the application. You can see the task completed and there is one column is there which is empty. So it is working fine. The next is, we will go and add the delete. So there should be a button and there should be a checkbox. So these are the 2 things we have to do next. So going to the checkbox component first. So the basic checkbox, you have to import the checkbox module. So you can go to the module section, import the checkbox, and the checkbox module is a form element. So you have to either use a ng model or a reactive form. So since I am using ng model, I am going to import forms module from the Angular forms. So whenever you are using any form components, you have to use a form module or the reactive form. So this should be imported from the Angular forms. Then the same thing needs to be added in the import section. Then go to the HTML. You have to copy this one. So p checkbox ng model. So you can go to here and instead of the to do completed, you can give this p checkbox, and instead of this checked one, you can give to do dot completed. And if you don't need, you want to use this input ID. So I'm just using only these 2 things. So let's see whether it is working or not. So the checkbox came now. The next thing, we have to add a button with the delete icon, right? So you have to search for the button. Then you have to import the button module. So copy that one and import here. Then add the button module. After add the button module, you can check there will be icon available. The similar way, you can copy the button from here and you can add it. Instead of icon, you can add here. Here instead of PI check, you can add PI trash. And the button is in a blue color now. You have to make it as a red color. So you have to give a class called pButtonDanger. So you got the task, you got the checkbox, and also you got a drop down. So in order to make the width properly, what I am going to do is I am giving here width equal to 60%, and for this last delete button I am giving the width equal to 5%, so it will looks more good. See, now we can check whether by default if it is completed, will it checked or not. So go to the TS file where the to-dos has been returned and you just try to make it as a false and check whether it is working fine or not. Okay, so if I am repeating this code with the ID to second to do and I am making it as a false, you can see it is reflecting properly. Yeah, next step is once we click on this checkbox, we have to update this particular record. So we will make sure on change we are getting the proper data. So for that, go to the HTML part and wherever you have written the checkbox, you can call on change event. So on change event, we will call a function update to do and you will get an event, and also we will pass this to do. Okay, and we will create this function and we'll make sure whether all the data we are receiving it or not here. So in the app.component, you can create the same function and we are receiving this one event. Now I am putting it as an unknown, we don't know the type. Then the next thing is to do. So the to do type I have to define it here. So in order to define an interface, you have to go to the terminal and you can create an interface file. So either you can go and create an interface file from here, or using the Angular CLA, you can use a command ng g for generate, I for interface, and you can tell the name, the to do. So the to do.ts file is generated here and export interface to do. So in that you can mention my interface is looks like ID is the optional. So it will be the number and there is a task which is a string and there is completed which is a boolean. So you got the to do. So you can tell my to do interfaces like this, and also if you press the control dot, you will see the auto import option. So add import from to do. So that is also added. Then you can check console dot log of E is the event, to do is the data receiving from the checkbox. So inspect element, in the console section, I am clearing this one, and if I checked, you can see the checked equal to false, and also I am getting the current row to do data. So if I click on the second, I am getting checked is true and the clicked data. Okay, so I am getting the full data. So that is working fine. So we will make it, we will call the API on the next step. Now we will go ahead with this one. The similar way, what you have to do is like while clicking on the delete icon also, you have to call a function. So you can do on click, since it is a button, you can give on click, and also you can write a function delete to do, and you can pass event. Then also you can pass the product ID. You don't need the product full data because updating you need, but for the delete you only need the product ID. So I am passing product ID. So I am going to create the same function here. So delete to do, and event you can give any or unknown. If you're not aware, then I'm giving the ID as the to do ID. This is the interface, it will be the same. Okay, so here I'm giving console.log of E and also ID. Save, and here you can see, sorry, this is not the product, this is the to do. So to do.id. So if you go to the application, inspect element on the console, click on the delete, you will get the ID as 2 and also you will get the event. So ID and event. Okay, so that part is completed. So the next thing is you have to create an add to do, right? Now the edit is done with the dummy data, the listing is done, the delete is also done with the dummy data. So you have to create a new to do. So for that you have to create an input box. You should have an input box. So in order to give the input box, you have to go to the Angular component and search for the input. So input text component you will copy, you can copy from here and add it in the app.module.ts file. Then input text module is added. Since it already added the forms module, I don't have to add it again. So input text module is a form element which should have a forms module. So that is already included. Then go to the HTML part. So above the table, we will do creating an input. Okay. So what I will do is, in the card section, I will create a div and I am giving a class. This is margin 2 and also I am giving a class called flex. Then I will separate it with a 2. So one div is there in which we have a input box and also I am going to add a new button. So new button, it's a check button. So I'm just removing these stuffs for now. So I'm adding a button and also I'm going to add an input text. Okay, so the input text, you can go to this input text module and you can copy the same from here. So input text, then p input text, you have to give the ng model. So what I'm going to give an ng model is the task. So here you have to declare that variable task. So I'm just removing the title from here and the task is equal to empty for now. So you can see the error went. Next you can give the placeholder and I am telling it's enter new to do. Let's see how our application looks now. So you can see a to do and also you can see a button, right? The next thing is like, without entering the data, the button should not be enabled, right? Now I can type anything and if I want, I can type the space and you can press the button. So what you have to do is you have to disable the button if there is no data. So in order to do that, what you can do, hash, I'm just giving a name called to do task and I'm giving equal to ng model and I'm telling this field is required and there is a button here and this button will get disabled if to do task is invalid. So sometimes it will be undefined, so I am giving 2 exclamation here. So let's see whether it is working or not. So by default it is disabled and if you type something it is getting enabled and if you remove something it will throw some error and again the button will get disabled. So the input box is also ready. The next is when you click on this button you have to add the to do, which we have done for the update and delete. The same thing we have to done for add as well. So here you can go ahead with the on click and add to do. I don't have to pass any parameters because all those data will be new. So I'm just taking this one and you will have the task from here. So add to do, just adding and console.log I'm saying added, that's it. If you want you can see the task which we are using an ng model variable that will be available here also. So I'm adding a task, this dot task. Now we have partially done our to do application with the mock data which we have returned inside the TS file. Next we are moving to use a JSON server which will help to create a REST API, which is a fake REST API with the data we are giving. For that you have to install the JSON server using this command globally. And after that, you can go to the db.json. You can go to the project and create any file name. Now I have created db.json file. They copied the same data of the to-dos and pasted it here. Okay, so to-do is the key here. The next step is you can go in the terminal and type Json-server, the path of the JSON file you have created, and enter watch. Then our to-do list will be available in this particular URL. If you go here, you can see if you type the to-dos, it will available, all the data which we have written in the db.json will be available in this URL. That's it, simple. Next, we have to access this data and you have to use in the list, right? For that, you have to create the service file. Now we don't have any service file for connecting to the backend. For that, in order to create a service file using the CLI, Angular CLI, you can use ng generate service, then the service file name. It will create service file inside the app folder. Go to the service file. Connect to the backend, you have to use the HTTP client module. So go to the app.module.ts file and import HTTP client. Same thing needs to be added in the import section. Go to the service file again and you have to add HTTP client there. Then you have to use the constructor with the HTTP client. HTTP client. Now our base URL is localhost 3000. So I am adding the base URL also. Now we have to write 4 functions, one for get to do list, another for add to do, then update to do, and the delete to do. So the first function we are going to write is get to do list. And it will return this .http then get, and I'm going to write the base URL. So $this base URL then /to-dos. In order to make sure our to-dos returning the list of to-do which we have written already in the interface. So to-do, and this is the structure. You can make sure this is the data it is returning from the API which we have written before, right? So save. So you will get the get to do list. The similar way I am going to write for add to do, delete to do, update to do. So add to do, there will be some newly added data coming as a post data and we will pass to the URL. So this is a post request and we are passing the second parameter as a post data. While updating, instead of post, it will be patch, and the base URL, there will be an ID. So which ID we are updating, and we are updated data also we are passing here. For the delete to do, instead of patch, it will be delete, and we can mention which ID, which record ID is we are deleting, and you can pass that ID. That's it. So we completed the service file creation. Then based on each action, you can call this function in the TS file and you can utilize that. Now we don't need this static data. Now you can remove this to-dos, and I am declaring this is a to-do array and initially it will be empty. On load, we can update this particular value. So for that, you have to implement a hook which is on in it, so that on the ng on it, you can call a function this dot get list. So this get list, this get list will do, we will call the service file function get to do list. For that, you have to inject the app service in the app.component. For injecting, I am using the constructor and I am giving a variable private app service and I am importing that app service file. And in the get list, by default on load, it is calling the get list function, which you have to call app service dot, which function we have to do is get to do list. Then you have to subscribe that function and it will return a response. Then this dot to-dos. So whatever the to-dos we have array, it will be initially empty. Then you have to assign whatever the response coming, you have to assign with this one. You can put the curly braces and you can mention it here. See, so you will get the to-dos from the db.json which we have mentioned. So the db.json, you can see here, we will get those data. If you want to change the data to make sure, you can check. I'm just adding this data. So this is getting updated, and here also it is getting updated. Now you can make sure all the data is coming from the JSON server, not the static data. We have removed all the static data, right? The similar way, next thing is we have to check add to do. While adding this data, what will happen? So while adding, you will get a text. While pressing the button, that needs to be added in this particular list, right? So let's get started. So for that, in the HTML, you will have a button. There is a task. Whenever the value is getting updated, the task is getting updated. And when the button click, add to do button click, you have to pass this data to the backend, right? So going here, we will get this dot task. For that, you have to call this dot app service dot add to do, and you have to pass the data. So the task should be this dot task, and the completed parameter will be, initially it will be always false, right? It is not completed, so it will be false. Then subscribe. In the response, you can check console.log of what response it is giving. So going to the application again, inspect, and I'm adding some data. In the console, you can see if I click on it, the data getting added. So it is returning the ID, but the data is not showing here. So we need a refresh, right? After refresh, it is getting updated. So in order to avoid the manual refresh, once the data is updated, you can call this get list function. So this dot get list function, you can add here. Now you can see once I added the data, it is getting added at the bottom of the page. So add to do is done, but you can see this value is not getting cleared, right? So for that purpose, you can do, once this is done, you can make the task is equal to empty, right? But there is a problem here. So if I add some data and press click, we are adding a validation, right? So on dirty, we are adding a validation. So if the data is added, it is getting empty, but there is a validation cell. In order to avoid that, since we are using ng model, we can reset the value using this particular one. For that, what you have to do is you have to go to the component.ts file, and you can use the view child. So I am adding a view child, and to do task is a value which we have referred here as a hash to do. So, and I am giving any here, and I am updating in the Angular core section. Okay, so that is done. Then you can come here, instead of this one, you can take this dot to do task dot reset. Then it will reset. Let's see whether it is working or not. Adding the data, see it is resetting, and the button is disabled. No validation error is coming there. Okay, so that part is done. The similar way, next is update to do. So when you click on the checkbox, so now the checkbox is updated. There we are calling the update to do. That means unchecked will be checked or checked will be unchecked, right? We have to update the checkbox value. So here we are calling the update to do here, and we are consoling it. For that, what you can do, you can call this dot app service dot update to do, and only we are changing the checkbox, right? The remaining things are same. So dot to do, that means all the remaining data I am passing, but only I am changing is a completed one. Okay, so for that, I'm just making it as an any for now, or there will be checkbox event. Yeah, checkbox change event is there. You can pass the checkbox change event. Then only we are changing the completed. For changing the completed, from the checkbox event E, you will get an item called checked, so which can be either false or true. So based on the change, we will get the current value of the checkbox, and the remaining name we are not changing. So we are passing the same thing here, and we are subscribing. Then response. We are just console.log of response. That's it, because we don't need to update the list, because when we click on the checkbox, it will be there itself, right? If we have a multiple users, then to do is only for our purpose. If you have multiple users are there, adding it, deleting it, then what you can do is then you can refresh this get list. But here for to do application, it's not really required to call the get list. Similar way we have in the done in the add to do. So Coming here, I'm editing. So even though I'm refreshing, that is reflected, right? So it is getting updated. The API call is going and it is getting updated. So if you want to make sure, inspect console, see, it is getting updated. All the data is coming. Okay. So the update to do is done. Next remaining thing is delete to do. So delete to do, you can simply call this dot app service dot delete to do, then id dot subscribe, then you will get the response, and once the response you got, you have to refresh the list. Otherwise you have to manually refresh in order to remove that record from the list, right? So I'm just calling this dot get list function. That's it. So closing this one and I'm deleting. It is getting deleted, deleted, deleted. See, I'm adding a new one. I'm adding and removing. There is a validation there and adding. See, make it updated. So everything is working fine. So this is our to do with our fake JSON server.